An absolutely wild boom.
We're headed into a world of big shakeups.
Hanging in the yard somewhere by Altman's place, taking bets on when we hit AGI.
Most of them are private.
Better run and start mining.
This market is such that 98%
Die.
A year ago, they had $1 billion in revenue. Now it's $15 billion.
I saw the chart in the video.
Oh, the Chinese.
And it fizzled out. But why Kazakhstan?
Wait. We're sliding toward a world we really don't want. Recently, Albania announced they're getting an AI minister. Superintelligence will be available to everyone.
No cap. Sounds awesome.
The future is already here. It's just unevenly distributed.
2 robots for every person. Is that your robot? It's going to the factory to work for you.
Sounds provocative, but interesting.
You message people today, hoping no one else will read it.
And I will.
Oh, your names are funny. In Elon's chats and the court docs.
Not funny.
These networks are actually built by enthusiasts.
That's it. It's already gold. People are already slicing it up and splitting it.
Massive inequality, rising unemployment, and so on.
It's changing all our lives right now.
Hey friends, quick facts about today's guests. They've been building companies for over 15 years. They sold one of them to Snapchat for $60 million. For the next company, after selling product science, they raised $18 million. They've also been building a fund for years that invests not just in companies, but in people. And they earn returns from all the products and companies those people create. That's only part of what they do. Plus, a year and a half ago, we recorded a podcast that's now at almost 1.5 million views. So, please welcome David and Daniil Lieberman. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
What's interesting is that last time we recorded, we spent quite a while talking about how our world, daily life, and the entire economy might change if AI were to move even more deeply into our lives. A month goes by, and then this totally crazy and unexpected boom kicks off, still going strong even today. Opinions split. Some say the world will never be the same. Everything will be automated and super high-tech. And there are plenty of skeptics who say it'll crash like the dot-coms in '99. And only a tiny slice of what we see now will remain. Because the rest is being puffed up so VCs and banks can make money right now. You're at the epicenter of all this. First, you're in the valley where it's happening right now. Second, you're actively building products yourselves and have a huge, well-connected network around you. Let's figure out what we actually have right now in your view. How much of this represents a real paradigm shift and a genuinely new future? And how much is just hype that will eventually fade away, leaving only a small fraction behind?
On one hand, if you look at the 2000 bubble chart, it barely looks like a bubble now, because today's market is orders of magnitude bigger than what seemed insanely inflated back then.
A little bit more.
Like Amazon was much cheaper then than it is now.
True, it did drop 98% afterward.
Yeah, maybe the clearer picture we all get is that Bitcoin is becoming more obvious to everyone.
The moment this thing pops up,
Bubble.
hype.
Hype.
At that point, money flows into projects that are essentially nothing. Because it's very hard to tell, right? They're tiny. They all look like they could someday become giants, but it's really difficult to judge. And in 2000, there were even some outright pure frauds. Senators were literally involved, directly taking part in the situation. WorldCom and Enron pretended to be the next Amazon and Google, trying hard to project that image. And they got value.
They pumped those valuations. They did. And then it all collapsed when their internal financial docs suddenly surfaced.
When was that? In what year?
It was the dot-com of 2000. Right. There were straight up fraud cases back then that dragged everything down around them, creating a ripple effect that made the whole situation even worse. But we can see now it wasn't all just a bubble, because Amazon, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, you name it, are worth trillions and making money.
That boom was built on expectations, on this broader belief that most products would eventually be sold online. Back then, only a tiny share was sold online. But those giant valuations came from that expectation. Now most products are sold online. That happened.
So you're saying it took 25 years?
It always ends up taking longer than expected. That's really the core reason for bubbles to form. The hype it's this thing where everything is supposed to happen tomorrow.
Yeah, like people overestimate what we can do in a year and underestimate what we can do in 10, right?
And it'll be the same with AI. There were tons of claims AGI would show up in the year and all that. It didn't.
AGI is artificial general intelligence.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about it in a bit.
Without the end goal for most AI companies now is to build that universal superhuman artificial intelligence. However, if you look closely, you can't really call it baseless anymore, not in any meaningful way, once you take everything into account.
Right now, bubble or not, it's clear where it truly works, and people genuinely pay for it. End users are paying those $20 a month because they clearly see how it changes their lives in real, meaningful ways.
So look, let me toss in questions that keep circling in my head. I saw forecasts from OpenAI, and if I remember right, they expect losses until 2030. About $112 billion, I think. That's absolutely colossal money we're talking about, and it's really just the tip of the iceberg here. Look at all the investments happening, and how people are literally being poached for billions of dollars. The numbers are completely insane. A new company launches, and it's like endless money just pours in from everywhere. So here's my inner question I've been pondering. Sure, among the hundreds of new companies emerging now, there will undoubtedly be gems that in 10 years become highly profitable, earn trillions in revenue, and fundamentally change the world like Amazon, Microsoft, and others have done. But it really feels like 98% of what we're seeing right now will ultimately end up just like those Amazon copycats you were mentioning earlier. And I keep wondering about this. When a company like OpenAI gets absolutely flooded with that much cash, does anyone even consider that the math might just not add up one day? And that's it. The company won't break even. Costs will explode. Plus, who knows? Power and maintenance issues and all that. And then what?
This market overall is about 98%.
They die.
That's how it will
Always.
be.
They've been dying for the last 30 years.
That's why it's so hard to tell from the outside, because it looks like everyone got it wrong. Investing in those 98 out of 100 companies
But if you take the longer term view and really try to count up all the money that's been invested over the course of time, then look at how much actual value was genuinely created and ultimately returned back to investors, like 5x.
All the money invested versus all the returns.
And honestly, it's normal that 98% die. And the kicker is, even if you try, you can't tell which one will actually become the giant. Will it end up being OpenAI or not? Nobody knows. Could OpenAI go to zero? It could, but the thesis still fundamentally rests on the underlying idea that on average, these particular shots are worth it.
Statistically speaking, right?
Statistically, they create such a huge so you can't look at companies like Google or Microsoft or Amazon today as just pumped up bubbles. Their valuations, the market cap to actual profit ratio, that multiple is lower than Walmart's. I mean,
Well, yeah, those are internet companies,
even though
and
those
Walmart's a
companies are growing
retailer,
way
right?
faster because they already companies that continuously generate a substantial ton of profit over time, net profit, and they justify all the money that's being poured into these new companies and startups. So yeah, you might think OpenAI is priced sky high. How is that possible? A year ago, they had $1 billion in revenue. Now they have $15 billion in total revenue. You don't see that kind of speed at any major company whatsoever. Not even close
Basically
to that
never
level.
in human history.
It doesn't leave the top spots. In the app stores. On Android and iOS. And every single time it releases and drops a brand new product into the market, it just rocks the whole field. The biggest companies already don't know what to do with it. So the hype around these companies and around a handful of talent, we're huge believers in the value of talent.
Yeah.
So it's become normal now for one-star talent to cost $100 million,
$100 million a
or
year,
even
or
$1 billion
billions
a year.
That changes the whole market.
but considering what they create and the uniqueness they create. It's not like anyone can build systems like that. It's just absolutely worth it, without a doubt. The kind of money going in, even though honestly, for someone outside this space, it's scary because in 98% of cases, being wrong is terrifying.
Because there are pros who know what to invest in. And everyone else figures if they don't jump in now,
They'll miss the
they'll
whole
miss
thing.
the wave and maybe lose what they already have. They jump in, but with way less professionalism. Why does Silicon Valley now have the biggest concentration of venture capital funding ever assembled in the smallest number of funds in its history? Like a massive concentration. Because the big outside money in venture capital got used to piling in all the time, kind of clumsily and without much thought. Fine, these 5 are the experts we trust completely. We just dump all the capital into them.
And if you look at firms like Andreessen Horowitz, so they're basically like Index now. They've invested in every company you can name, even though before that was considered wrong.
You had to choose.
You were supposed to pick one, otherwise it's a conflict of interest. And now they're investors in OpenAI, xAI, Anthropic, SSI Superintelligent, Ilya Sutskever's Safe Superintelligence, and in Mira Murati's company too. They've invested in all of them.
And add at least 2 more startups that are actively building decentralized AI solutions to the list. Basically, they put eggs in every basket.
And in that particular sense, no one is actually claiming that they know exactly which specific one will ultimately win. But everyone understands and gets that this market will definitely look quite different going forward, and that its total potential value is so extraordinarily
Tens
high
of trillions.
that it completely justifies all of these.
So when I say expertise, I mean not putting money into total garbage, but into everything else that's clearly built by people who know what they're doing. You still put money in, even if it loses. You don't know who wins.
Let's walk through a hypothetical. Look, let's draw the dot-com analogy. Sure, some companies survived, but 99% went to zero. So imagine this. You say nobody knows. There are companies like OpenAI getting pumped with money. And if we look at what's happening with markets now, this whole bubble, this so-called stock market bubble, is largely driven by expectations that companies will get more efficient. With layoffs, higher profits, expectations rise, and markets rise. Our stock market is just pointing straight up right now. Look at the S&P 500. Okay, picture this case, hypothetically. Some amount of time passes, a year, 2, 3, I don't know how long, and OpenAI says, no, that's it. Like, guys, the math just doesn't add up, okay? The math doesn't work. And that's it, they fold. And as you can guess, a bunch more would collapse after them. So let's sketch out, why am I asking? Because a lot of people are scared of this right now. Many people are afraid to buy the stock market, stocks in general, because they get it could all go to zero. And what if it drops 90%? And on top of that, we see this unusual thing where the US stock market is rising and gold is rising too, right? It's like both risk assets are up and gold is up. Obviously, governments are buying.
Bitcoin ripping higher too.
So everything's up, and that's totally abnormal. And people coming in like, I have, say, $1 million I want to invest. Look at all this and think, nah, something's off here. In your view, what happens to the US economy and the world if a giant like that just shuts down, goes bankrupt, and drags a bunch of others down with it?
In general, like bubble peaks, usually unjustified, and the bottoms of crises are usually off too. And most likely there will be a very
a
sharp correction.
Sharp drops.
Especially given, I just defended AI companies, but we don't really agree with the current strategy. You're right that a huge amount of capital is going into non-innovation. That's the issue. A massive amount of capital is being poured in
into scaling the current status quo.
Data centers, for example,
data
right?
centers with even the current hardware.
Insane money, honestly.
Well, they book depreciation over 6 years on equipment that, by any reasonable measure, should be completely obsolete in 2 years.
We can see it now, using Bitcoin as the example. Older ASICs are just inefficient. Your hash rate is like...
Can you even picture how much?
Yeah. I'm using small numbers here, but just imagine the sheer amount of capital involved. And well, the model is pretty much the same.
Just Bitcoin on its own, over the course of 13 years, Bitcoin ASICs have dramatically cranked up their efficiency, measuring how many mathematical operations you can get per dollar invested and per watt of energy consumed. That kind of computational productivity improvement.
Yeah.
Up by 300,000 times.
So in that sense...
In 13 years.
In that sense, you're actually talking about the cutting edge here. Pouring substantial amounts of money into just building out and expanding the current setup, right?
Mm-hmm.
The current version.
Scaling silicon.
The hardware. That's the reality from our point of view. That's a pretty serious mistake to make, I have to say. And on that particular front, I think it's worth noting, but it's done
with very clear calculations. With 2 clear calculations.
Because right now, there's a fierce fight for dominance of this market who gets to control it. And everyone is ready to forget that maybe...
The math doesn't matter, yeah.
But we still think these are the wrong strategies. You're right that if fear kicks in at some point, like a chain reaction set off by what they're doing, building on itself and spreading, then yeah, in practice, you can roll progress back a few years, effectively setting the clock back, just like we basically did not that long ago, in 2002, in 2021, and again in 2024, because of the huge expectations 2021 created. Expectations everyone remembers.
Mm-hmm.
The post-pandemic year. For a couple years, it was really hard to raise funding for projects.
You flat out couldn't raise money.
There were some pretty interesting cases, sure, smaller scale analogies, but take Farfetch, right? When COVID hit, they said, we're going to disrupt the fashion market, and from now on, everyone will be shopping online. They were flooded with money, and valuations shot up. Then it turned out any brand could spin up its own e-commerce site, and once the pandemic ended, people still liked brick and mortar and kept going to stores. And the company ended up being sold off for $1.
Exactly. Those overblown expectations actually lead to...
Let's be specific. In this exact case, what happens? They flood the market with a massive amount of GPUs. Then it suddenly turns out there's no demand, or something else shows up, since that will all crash. What it really leads to, and could lead to, is that progress in chip speeds will slow for a while, because no one is going to put fresh capital into that development. But those chips aren't going to vanish. It's not like, boom, AI disappears. No, AI will still be there. There will simply be a redistribution of who owns what.
Mm-hmm. Basically, the money just gets shuffled from one pocket to another. Someone loses, someone gets financed, someone scoops it up for
Same as real
pennies.
estate in 2008,
2008, yeah.
It just changed hands. And then 2 years later, they basically got their money back. Not everyone, the ones who scooped up the assets, got it back.
That's why OpenAI is playing it smart with how they raise money. Most of the funds don't go into the company. They go to third-party firms taking loans to build those data centers. So OpenAI loses very little. OpenAI's investors lose very little. It's more the investors in those third-party data center companies.
The financial institutions.
Oracle, all this gets pumped into Oracle, who builds the data centers and buys those GPUs on its CapEx.
Yeah, number one, right? Became the richest person in the world.
Thanks to this.
And the core idea might not even crash when it suddenly turns out all that hardware isn't needed and we need other kinds.
So the idea is, you're saying, even if that scenario happens, it might be overvalued right now and then drop hard for a bit. But it's not like the entire market will reverse course and go back to where it was. So it's inevitable. It'll just, like any crisis, bounce back
in a couple years.
Yeah, and in a couple of years, it goes back to normal and grows in a healthier, more natural way. Sound right?
And 20 years later, we won't even recognize
it'll be worth
the
10
name.
times. Yeah, it will.
And in that sense, it's really kind of inevitable and predictable. The psychology behind it is when this happens, it's genuinely hard to stop yourself from participating. And everyone just rushes to put some of their capital in almost simultaneously. But to actually invest capital effectively, you need real deep expertise. You have to be able to tell where genuine innovation is actually happening and where it isn't happening.
And that's crucial. And again, it's a real life-changing product, right? It's changing all our lives right now in every single profession out there. So it's definitely not fake. It's not some kind of giant bubble that's going to burst, which is exactly why every government or company takes a look at it and says to themselves, if I wait around for a year just to see if it pops or not, I could very well end up completely irrelevant.
So look, pushing this forward, this is really one of the big global questions that we're facing now. We basically have the United States, who are, as usual, the main beneficiaries of this technological boom for many, many years. On the other hand, there's China, and we barely see anything in public sources. From what I can tell, it's basically all top secret, but they're clearly building things. Meanwhile, the US is trying to poach Chinese talent for crazy money. So yeah, it's a head-to-head race between those two powers. And that actually raises a couple of important questions. First, what happens if one of them wins in the end, and how does it play out? And second, what happens to everyone else? Because it's like, if you draw an analogy here, at some point Google showed up and essentially took over the entire world. But then there were these country-level local networks that emerged. In Russia, you had Yandex developing, and elsewhere various others popped up as well. Like in Thailand, there are these local search engines. But still, when we talk about a search engine, that's one level of resources. When we talk about,
the entire internet.
Yeah, the capital and resources you need here are really like times 1,000 compared to other places. So it really feels like a country like, say, Kazakhstan, Russia, Albania, Brazil, or whatever. They just simply can't afford to do anything meaningful about it on their own. And in that kind of model, it feels like at some point there'll be a single giant that beats everyone and effectively takes over the world. And after that, no one can really challenge it. So how do you see, right now, the situation with the US and China, and going forward, the data coming out of it?
What we're doing now is exactly the result of the analysis we did a bit over 3 years ago. A little over 3 years ago, we looked at everything going on. And this wasn't from public sources. We're quite close with Greg Brockman and Ilya Sutskever. We're friends with Sam Altman and various other key players in this market space. We saw what was happening and what bets they were placing. At first, around 2017, it was kind of, hanging out in the yard at Altman's place in Palo Alto, taking bets on when AI would actually show up for real. 30 years, 50 years, maybe just 10. It felt like a joke. But about 3 years ago, it was a real turning point for us. We were like, wow, it's actually happening right now. We were completely wrong. We thought we'd need fully functional quantum computers to reach the level that we're about to hit now. And we started breaking down what's happening, including literally the politics around it. And there was a moment, 2 years ago, a little more than 2 years ago, when a small group of people met together in Aspen, for example, OpenAI, Microsoft,
Meta was there.
Elon was there, and I forget who else, and NVIDIA, plus some government folks. And they all agreed that no single company gets to have a GPU monopoly. And NVIDIA has to split up and distribute its GPUs among all of them.
Yeah. So basically a kind of geopolitical decision, right?
Right. And as soon as that geopolitical move was made, alongside it came Biden's executive order, which stated that this is a licensed activity and that models exceeding 1 trillion parameters cannot be trained without obtaining U.S. government approval. Those two key factors, and then a whole widespread of various others. BIS blocking chip sales. Even though TSMC is a Taiwan company, but NVIDIA is an American company, even if it makes them in Taiwan, and still control over who it can sell those chips to. It exists and is set by the US government. At that point, bam, we were already at that point. Not in 2 years, but right then. We hit that point 2 years ago.
So it hadn't visibly happened yet, but deals were already being made about how it would go from here.
The carve-up already happened 3 years back, and it basically got locked 2 years ago. So about 2 or 3 years ago, China and the US had a kind of parity by the amount, by the quantity,
computing power.
Computing power, like 20 to 25%, something like that. That was the rough split. And now the US has 90% of the compute worldwide.
Look, the US actually bet a while back on fully dominating this market. And in that particular sense, we're still very much on that same track. You're absolutely right. If we don't manage to get off it, we'll ultimately end up with two distinct poles. Their economic power will be absolutely huge, significantly bigger and more extensive than what we see today, thanks to the immense control and tremendous leverage you get when you're the only one who can make and develop these models and let businesses use them effectively and efficiently. And for now, that's the plan. This plan has very clear math behind it. The premise being that most of this compute right now runs on NVIDIA GPUs.
I've seen NVIDIA charts. No, it's just...
Before, gamers knew what NVIDIA was.
Folks who played PC games.
And now everyone knows about it because it's become the most valuable company in the world. And yeah, they really set a standard quite a few years ago that made these computations possible.
Way back. We worked with that standard around 2002, 2003.
Right. And at first, everyone was really skeptical. Like, why do we even need it? Only scientists and researchers would actually use it. It even felt weird and almost excessive how much effort and resources they poured into developing it. That turned out to be a very smart
Then it moved into
strategy.
games.
A standard for what?
A standard for how the mathematical computations run on the graphics cards. How a program's computational task gets translated and mapped into specific operations on that particular architecture.
So basically that defines the chip's performance, right?
It determines whether you can even write a program that will run on that chip.
Got it.
It's called...
So basically you use that to write games back then, like
even
by
before
those rules.
Games, before it fully hit games. We use that thing for distributed mathematical computations.
And because of that particular standard, now there's actually a lot more, they genuinely have the ability to exert control over things. If that standard didn't exist in the first place, we'd see lots of different players emerging. There's plenty of capital available in the world, not just concentrated in the United States and China. We'd see various companies and entire countries that would be able to afford and invest in some alternatives. Not now. As you know, every single U.S. trade negotiation that takes place, for example, with countries like Saudi Arabia or the United Arab Emirates,
include
a
clause.
How many will we be allowed to buy?
Yeah, I even saw the latest deal when Trump flew to the Middle East. In all of those agreements that were made, the number.
How many we're allowed to buy.
The count, like how many GPUs they'll let us buy and so on.
The numbers are tiny. They're allowed
like
to buy
100 billion
20,000.
or so. Basically a drop in the ocean at the current scale.
And OpenAI and xAI at that moment each get a million of those
I saw
GPUs.
that. It's pretty laughable, honestly.
Right, but every country understands they at least need that. And the negotiations over it are really tough. And we're actually heading that way.
On the brink.
That direction. And that path is honestly not very pleasant for everyone else.
Most likely for the rest of the world.
Because it's abundantly clear that all those hundreds of billions of dollars, the massive billions going into data centers right now, everyone else will ultimately end up paying for. And when you have no other way out, when you don't have a cheap alternative of your own, you can't do anything except pay. And in that particular sense, for the past 3 years, this exact same scenario has really bothered and troubled us.
At first.
It's almost completely inevitable at this point. But we
see a tiny opening.
The scenario where the U.S. dominates this game.
Yeah.
What's interesting is DeepSeek dropped at the start of this year. Yeah, barely been a year, and the whole world shook. Back then, everyone was like, the Chinese. And
it fizzled out.
It fizzled. Yeah. Because honestly, a lot of false stuff was said about DeepSeek back then. It was a pure PR stunt. But it's also true. DeepSeek works. It's a very good model. And if you rewind another year and a half, we were racing around trying to raise money to do roughly the same thing DeepSeek ended up doing because they had the money. The company that built the model had $2 billion to do it. Just saying. All those stories about it being 50 million, no way. They had a ton of money and a lot of computers.
They're very successful traders.
They're traders. They had a boatload of money.
They bought a lot of those NVIDIA cards.
Here's an example. There's Alex Gurko. the biggest private taxpayer in the UK.
Yeah, I know him.
So, what makes Alex so successful trading on Forex?
Doesn't he have some crazy Forex bots?
No, not super mega robots. He had 50,000 GPUs. That's why.
Yeah, so the number of compute cards he had was comparable to what it took to train ChatGPT, but he just used them for
He
trading.
just uses them for trading.
Not for training.
They're
Smart move.
They have
Just
a couple
incredibly
hundred
smart.
a couple hundred very smart mathematicians who go through months of interviews to get into Alex's company.
That's wild.
And they conduct interviews with them for several months to carefully figure out if they're truly a fit. Then those folks go on to design models to effectively use GPUs for trading Forex properly. And they're currently the second biggest private trading firm in the entire world. After Citadel. These guys are the Chinese version of that. They had a ton of money, like a lot.
And the key thing
They
is,
put a couple of $1 billion into this project. And our point about 3 years ago, 2.5, was that this is possible. Everyone was saying, no, you can't catch up to Apple or Google or OpenAI. You can catch up, for sure. You just need a lot of resources.
Mm-hmm.
The Chinese did it, and they're in some lag, but they're, how do you say in English? Choked? Squeezed, because they were deliberately pushed out of buying those chips about 2 years ago. They're trying to buy them through every crack. Cards flow to them via Singapore, via Malaysia, through every possible channel. Smuggled. Chips do get into China. But it's crumbs, because 90% of these chips still go to 5 American companies.
Mm-hmm. And everything you're saying now basically confirms there will be a kind of market monopolist in the form of one country that then sets the rules of the game, the economic order for everyone else.
Unless we,
So what's the alternative path, right?
and by we, I mean your viewers, literally each of us, see it and put all our effort, our resources, our time and attention into an alternative path. And it has a small chance, maybe a 1% chance it actually happens. But that alternative path, fully open source, full decentralization, and pool shared resources into one standard and one protocol that will ultimately win. It might lag a couple years, but like I showed with DeepSeek, it took them approximately a year or so to catch up enough to actually be genuinely useful and practical.
an example of that alternate path already exists in our current framework. We just need to look at it from the other side of the equation.
Through a different lens, the wrong one.
If you look at what Bitcoin actually is, mostly people talk about like a financial instrument, like new gold.
Digital gold.
Yeah.
Bitcoin makes up about 10% of the gold
And
market.
most folks are into how much Bitcoin costs today, whether it dropped or spiked. But there's another angle. What if we treat it as an infrastructure project? Right now, as you know, OpenAI, xAI, Microsoft are all building these massive data centers.
Yeah, totally.
Stargates.
Yeah. Musk built a gigantic
that's
one.
all anyone's writing about. He calls it Colossus. It's got 1 million GPUs in it, and it's widely considered to be the fastest infrastructure build that's ever been accomplished.
Tens of billions of dollars invested.
But just look at Bitcoin.
Think of
for a
Bitcoin
moment.
as a comprehensive financial framework for funding infrastructure development and projects.
So basically, anyone can become a miner, buy some mining rigs, plug them directly into their electrical outlet, and essentially become...
Today, anyone can. It kind of sounds like I just built my own, but can you imagine the scale Bitcoin has today?
I mean, I get that it's a highly distributed infrastructure system overall.
Super distributed. But how big is it? What's the scale?
26 gigawatts.
Hard to estimate.
26 gigawatts is more than Microsoft, Amazon, Google, OpenAI, xAI combined.
Told you Bitcoin is the future.
Yeah. Just look.
Bitcoin isn't the future. Bitcoin's already here.
It's the present.
It's the biggest data center.
Back then, I called it future today. Now it's already real.
It's the biggest data center
in the world.
in the world.
Yeah.
While today's
Just
headlines
distributed.
are predominantly focused on and dominated by companies like OpenAI or Elon Musk's ambitious xAI venture, this year, each of them built around 1 gigawatt of data centers. In the same time, Bitcoin added 5 gigawatts.
Mm-hmm.
It's really an incredible infrastructure that we've managed to build here because it's completely distributed with no single point of dominance, just from geographical location or regulatory control.
There's still a kind of minor company conglomerate with a huge share. We have to acknowledge that.
Picture like 10,000 players splitting that throne. Not a million like it was at the peak
Yeah,
in
yeah.
2015, 2016. Now it's just 10,000 players.
Beyond the truly massive scale that we're seeing, it simply and decisively beats everything that the centralized players have built up until now. At the same time, it drove and accelerated the fastest pace of innovation that we've seen in the actual hardware doing those computations.
In chips, it's semiconductors, which back in 2012, 13, 14, though 14 might already be pushing it. You could mine Bitcoin on a GPU, NVIDIA.
Or on the home computer.
Yeah, on a graphics card from your PC.
Or NVIDIA is already selling special racks just to mine crypto. New market for them. And where is NVIDIA in Bitcoin mining now? Nowhere. It just isn't there.
It couldn't compete with the speed of innovation those independent teams had.
Then specialized companies like Bitmain appeared, completely focused on it, consistently dropping new machines every 6 months or so.
And in 2010, you needed approximately 5 million joules of energy in order to
compute 1 terahash.
Compute 1 terahash, 1 unit of Bitcoin computation. Today, 15 years later, it's 300,000 times less. It only takes 15 joules to do a terahash. That was incredible innovation. If we could pull off the same
We didn't just scale up the number of chips that are burning tons and tons of electricity. The total number of math operations those chips are running on that entire gigawatt load, it's tens of thousands of times more math than the entire world's cloud does.
Which is exactly how we should be approaching AI infrastructure at this moment in time. We didn't need to go out and buy cutting-edge gear for hundreds of billions of dollars just to get started. We needed
a distributed model
to launch a mechanism where makers around the world have a relatively simple and straightforward setup where if I make the hardware 10% better or improve it by that amount, I earn 10% more revenue. I don't need distribution channels. I don't need to negotiate deals with Microsoft or Google. I can just plug this hardware directly into the wall and it works. And I'll be more successful.
Right. See, the main idea here, the key fundamental difference, is really more of a philosophy, yeah? Bitcoin actually spread widely because the pitch was that it's a people's tool. And everyone, let's bring that forward, you know? Like, the model clicked with the idea, and the consumer picked up that philosophy too. Here it's the opposite. We, just us. And you stay outside. People panic about unemployment, wondering what happens to them, while beneficiaries try to catch in.
That's exactly why I'm saying our only real chance at this point is to make sure we keep all of us from getting tossed overboard by whatever storm is coming our way. One center. Because even when we say it's 5 American companies...
That doesn't change the point.
No, wait. We say 5 companies? Sure. No monopoly. But they will. But this is fundamentally a national security question. How quickly do those companies come under U.S. government control and oversight?
They're basically already there.
We basically already are. But how fast do they fall under full control?
Especially if they start taking jobs from millions.
If the Chinese start...
Then it's clearly going to be a heavily regulated activity.
Governments will control all of it. There won't be other options.
And we just slide into it all being in one pair of hands. And then that one pair decides, are you behaving well or not? Enough for us to give you these resources. And that's it. And we're sliding. Not at all toward the kind of world we'd want to live in.
On the other hand, imagine that this particular alternative approach actually makes the hardware 300,000 times cheaper than it currently is. Me today as an engineer, I already spend approximately $2,000 a month on various AI tools and services. Very few people can actually afford it, yeah. But it speeds up my work so incredibly much that it's really quite hard to compete with me when I...
So you're literally just buying $2,000 worth of software. That's what you're
No,
doing,
no, no.
really.
Subscriptions.
Subscription.
AI subscriptions.
Yeah, I mean, subscriptions.
That's just one single thing. The 2000 is just what he spends specifically on coding tasks through the API interface. And if you stack all the other subs on top, that's like another 500 plus.
And the reality is that most people simply can't afford that expense.
Yeah, makes sense, sure.
And that gives me a competitive edge that takes work away from others. I'll have more work for a bit until I don't either. Because Elon Musk runs XAI at hundreds of thousands of dollars in operational costs because you can always dial up more compute power and explore more variations in the models. But if you split the $2,000 that I spend on this across 300,000, with that level of optimization, it rounds to zero, literally zero, not even worth calculating.
If these chips end up getting 100,000x faster in terms of performance, you simply divide his 2,000 by 100,000, and it's basically zero at that point.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at.
0 point something? Basically zero.
And that's definitely realistic. Like with the Bitcoin network, having more data centers and significantly more compute power didn't fundamentally change or alter the core underlying idea. Bitcoin stayed the same. It didn't change.
Same supply of Bitcoin, same TPS, nothing changed.
But if we actually apply that same principle to AI and compute infrastructure, it could basically save us from the concerning scenario you just described.
So in that particular setup and scenario, AI could potentially get so incredibly cheap and accessible that a superintelligence would essentially be in everyone's hands and wouldn't be controlled or monopolized by anyone.
That's essentially like a global even distribution model, right? And please correct me if I'm wrong here, but this is already happening as we speak. First of all, there are a few innovative startups actively pushing this idea forward. Decentralized AI. Trying to crack it open somehow. I'm not super deep in it, but I've seen some rundowns. And second, your colleagues were specifically saying that what went down in Kazakhstan between Durov and their president is directly tied to this whole situation too, yeah? People are definitely looking in that direction.
What's happening now is that over the last year and a half or so, we went from thinking that decentralization could never possibly be efficient enough for this kind of intensive compute workload to seeing that decentralization can actually work really well for this kind of workload. Basically, yeah. 2 years ago, pretty much every single builder and developer of social apps and messaging platforms across the industry was
Facebook,
absolutely freaking out
WhatsApp.
about the whole ChatGPT phenomenon that was happening. What is it? Sure, it didn't have social tools yet, and we still don't really see them.
It's just a feature rollout thing, basically.
It's just a matter of
Yeah,
time. They all
Just
get that.
features again.
They're still single-player experiences. But how long till...
Look at just how many people are already actively chatting and engaging there. The app basically never drops down from the top rankings of every single app store out there. And that has definitely made everyone nervous.
My AI chats are on par with how many Telegram conversations I have in a day.
And recently you might have heard that they've rolled it out in the United States for now. That really interesting social video generation app that's been getting a lot of attention. It's called Sora. Yeah, that's the one we were talking about right before the podcast started. They just added this tiny but interesting social feature where you can mention someone directly and they'll actually see it in their feed. Right. You know, like...
I didn't catch that. That's Sora 2, yeah?
That's the core phenomenon. They added one tiny social feature and instantly shot to number one in the
pure
App
hype.
Store.
#1 overall.
Retention and viral spread through the roof.
And that's exactly what all the social app makers started really worrying about at that point, from Mark Zuckerberg to Pavel Durov. But back then,
Zuckerberg. We all saw it. Meta pushed a similar product like 5 days before, right? They rushed to ship their version.
a video app.
Meta, what do they even call it?
Folded into Meta AI.
I honestly don't remember the name at all. They were that scared and concerned about it, of where this was headed. And obviously everyone knows who's doing what.
Yeah, of course.
They shipped in 5 days. 5 days before launch, they put out their version. And now inside Meta, they're currently in a state of shock. about
Because nobody actually used what they ended up releasing to the public.
people just joked about theirs. The other one, everyone actually uses.
So if I'm reading you correctly, it's really all about the launch strategy. Meta ships something and it's pretty meh, while the other launch actually drives crazy engagement levels and everyone talks about it everywhere.
It's the product and tech approach.
They really figured out how to successfully build and develop products in the AI space. But what about the messengers, the messaging apps? What happened is that 2 years ago, all the messengers got scared. How can we spend that much money?
It's expensive.
If our billions of users start chatting with AI and engaging in conversations with these systems, we'll never be able to recoup those costs. Their monetization tail is incredibly tiny and really minimal. But OpenAI changed the model.
Users pay them $20 a month.
And in that sense, they could afford it, whereas all the messengers, and then all the messengers
For free.
rolled stuff out like that. Either WhatsApp or Telegram, bot-wise. They all shipped some...
AI agents, AI bots.
All of them were simplified, using cut-down models.
And the quality was just bad.
So users tasted it.
People went,
and bounced.
Meta will never do anything in AI. Durov will never do anything. And everyone went, oh, we've got ChatGPT instead. Double down on ChatGPT.
I'm guessing that's exactly what led to the whole Durov-Musk Telegram play that ended up flopping pretty hard, even though the underlying concept itself was actually quite decent.
It comes from this. Durov has the audience, but no AI, and he needs AI for his audience. And Musk has no audience, because while OpenAI already has basically everyone.
Why does Musk have no audience if he has Twitter? Well, X.
Because the way people use it...
Because with AI...
With Twitter, it's reading. People are there to read.
So they're not coming for that user experience?
They do come for that user experience. And they come to OpenAI to chat.
And that created this tension where, on one hand, social companies weren't ready to spend that much on user requests. And on the other hand, you could clearly see something gradually eating away at their market share. Back then, OpenAI was relatively small and not well known. Now, they're approaching nearly 1 billion users, which makes them comparable in size to the major established players. And they're growing at a much faster rate.
Yeah, the pace.
Faster than Telegram or Instagram.
15 years over here and just a couple of years over there.
And in that sense, we talked with Durov 2 years ago and basically agreed the only real way forward was to make it fully decentralized. Because decentralization can make it so cheap that
it makes it possible for everyone to adopt it.
Afford it.
Yeah, I get it.
But back then, Nikolai said decentralization wouldn't work.
It wouldn't work. I have my own ideas for how to do it properly, and it's obvious they didn't listen then, because now they're clearly trying to scramble and fix it last minute before it's too late.
So in that particular sense, it really kind of confirms and validates that decentralized AI systems and approaches, it is truly the only real future we have. The only viable alternative besides a handful of American companies winning primarily because they control the GPUs and own the entire technology stack.
And we really love the Durov brothers and the Telegram team. It's our main messenger, and we honestly respect what they've built. But the approach for AI has to be different.
These are totally different products. Here, the whole story is about building a convenient thing with great user experience, right? With a cool vibe. But AIs are a completely different game. The interface can be totally janky, like a single window with one button. The real question is what you have on the back end, and you can't whip that up fast.
Right. And then there's compute. To train a serious model, you need a huge amount of computation, a ton of GPUs, a ton. To catch up, you need a lot.
And even just to serve it to your users, you need even more compute.
Even more.
Like to spit out those videos that now pop up everywhere, the ones you generate with one click and they appear, just like that.
If each of these companies, Durov, whoever, Canva, Pixar, I can name them, I don't know, Chatfuel, MiniChat, a bunch of old school bot builders, all of them are now trying to wedge themselves into this space. Everyone needs an LLM, everyone needs compute, everyone wants to be in there. If each of them fights for their slice of the market, you end up with the same top 5 players each of which has millions of GPUs and can outspend everyone else.
Yeah, but Kazakhstan doesn't have a million GPUs.
And it won't.
Right, obviously. No one will give them a quota anymore.
But
So Durov is trying to build something for himself, because obviously you can't go forward without AI. Can he build an alternative for the whole world? He can't.
Why Kazakhstan?
because Kazakhstan bought GPUs.
They need to apply it somehow, yeah? I get it. So they don't really get what to do with it. But they have GPUs, and they kind of think they know what to do with them.
There are several thousand
This
GPUs
year, I've
there.
already flown to 24 countries.
Every country has its
And
own
somewhere
1,000 GPUs.
After
And they
this,
sit there wondering what to do with them, right?
Right after this, we're meeting with the AI minister here in Dubai. And before that, I just flew in from meeting government folks from Vietnam. And before that, they've all got lots and lots. What are thousands, really? 1,000 GPUs each. Everyone is thinking what to do with them to stay sovereign in AI.
But for it to be relevant, you have to build all of it. A free protocol. One that
An open
everyone
source
would be
free
ready
protocol.
to join. So that together, it adds up to something meaningful. So when you look at it as a whole, it's quite comparable to the overall scale of major AI labs operating
At least to the
today.
scale of DeepSeek.
Right. But then you have to actually kick off the process so that things can move forward. Innovation in chips could potentially enable all these distributed players to significantly outrun those big players. Otherwise, there's no other path. Otherwise, the ability...
So open source by itself won't cut it. Besides open source, you need a comprehensive financial framework that is similar to or even identical to the one that Bitcoin had in its foundation, with the same underlying motivation for doing it: money. You mint a brand new token. Its value is ultimately set by the market of traders, by speculation and the market dynamics that play out in the ecosystem, about whether it will take a big share of the market you're targeting. With Bitcoin, everyone wondered if it would be 10% of gold's market or not. And that was the speculation. Will it or not? That's scarcity, digital scarcity. There it's physical, metallic scarcity. And here it's digital scarcity, mostly about electricity, which basically became a derivative of electricity. And inside that kind of framework, you can ultimately end up with the expectation that the protocol's coin could potentially serve as a subsidy mechanism. So the infrastructure gets built now, and the bet on market share is about the future.
Let's move away a bit from our imagined scenarios and shift our focus to the real world. In your view, how possible or feasible is this in reality? Because, like, what happened with Bitcoin, for example, you also have to understand the context of how that model unfolded. The 2008 crisis hit, people lost money, they saved their whole lives, blah, blah, lost their homes, blah, blah, were left without...
A loss of trust.
Yeah, there's been a real loss of
central
trust in the
banks.
system. Central banks have been printing money, and the dollar has gotten devalued as a result. And then a solution finally arrived on the scene. And ideologically, it wasn't fast either, but step by step, idea by idea. Almost 20 years have passed, by the way, right? Let's not forget. It turned into $2 trillion. There's your big decentralized network. So when I listen now, in theory, no doubt, sounds great. I just don't get how this could actually be implemented and what would have to happen. Because, like say, hypothetically, some group of proactive guys goes, yeah, let's do it. Here's decentralization for you. They create the protocols for it, set up some kind of internal incentives, profit sharing or whatever. I don't really know how it's supposed to work. But after that point, people have to genuinely feel and experience the problem and financial model firsthand to truly want to pursue it and follow through. And that needs a really strong catalyst. Right now, I can't see how this would happen for real.
There is...
We can go straight ahead and dive right into it because some folks have already gotten together and successfully accomplished it.
Are those folks you?
We got together and made it. We've been writing this for the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And until we wrote it and proved it works, we didn't even tell anyone. We launched a month and a half ago, and it's working and growing. I mean, the number of participants is growing. We went from 80 GPUs to 450 GPUs in about a month.
Then stop. Pause for a second. Important point so we don't lose the timeline. So look, as I understand it, like 3 years ago, right? Or something like that, you launched Product Science and raised, I think, $18 million in the first round. First, that's a pretty big seed round. Usually the amount is smaller. Second, if I looked at your track record right, since then, was that 2021 or what year was it?
2021.
In 2021, yeah. Since then, I looked at your tracker. You have, what's the product that finds errors in code?
That is Product Science. Code Tuner.
Code Tuner, right. And you haven't raised money after that, yeah? And you know what question came to my mind? So look, on the one hand, you're deeply immersed in AI, in what's going on in the Valley, you've got a reputation and all that blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, startups in this LLM space started getting funded like crazy. And you didn't just sprint to raise round after round. Startups in this area started getting flooded with money. But you didn't rush headfirst to raise more and more. Let's take that as the starting point. How did it start? And what happened? And let's move to where things are now.
2 years ago, that particular moment happened, that defining moment.
Packed.
We were actually already working on an AI product that worked with big companies like...
Short version, you plug this into your code and it helps you find bugs.
Helps find bugs and helps optimize.
In fact, it really helps push your app to the absolute max. It
By
plays a
detecting
kind of
all the
Tetris
issues,
game
yeah?
with the resources. It finds where the code is laid out suboptimally and rearranges it optimally. It's like packing code dense so it runs fast.
And artificial intelligence does that great. So we accordingly built this company, and it worked.
Our clients were Walmart, Airbnb.
I saw their Tinder. Big companies, yeah.
Right. But 2 years ago, because of that explosion, we...
on the one hand,
realized that building this kind of protocol and creating this distributed infrastructure is, and on one hand, it is the only thing that we need to work on right now at this moment. And on the other hand, it's really kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to build something truly remarkable
Massive.
Of that scale and magnitude. And that's when we made the decision to pivot our approach and incubate this protocol within Product Science as our development environment. And the moment we decided that, we put this kind of self-imposed
taboo
constraint on ourselves. Yeah, like a hard restriction that we wouldn't raise any money for this project.
How was it not funded with Product Science money?
It was Product Science money. But the key difference? We raised funds at Product Science for a completely different thing than what we later pivoted into. Which means we never told any investor that we build this decentralized network infrastructure with their money and resources. Why does that particular aspect matter so much?
Because, as you know, when you launch decentralized networks or coins, any kind of pre-promise or commitment to investors that their money is specifically going to be used for building it in the United States, that creates certain implications.
The SEC is not going to love that.
That's not allowed under the regs.
You'd be labeled as security right away. And if we want to build basically a Bitcoin, then it has to be a commodity, a cryptocurrency. It has to be a utility token used for a specific product.
So we set a rule. We wouldn't discuss it with investors. We wouldn't raise a cent. We'd build it and launch. We had enough resources available at that time. And honestly, when it comes to building these types of systems, it takes a significant amount of talent, skilled engineers, and experienced product folks, but it doesn't require thousands and thousands of employees. And we made the deliberate choice to really focus on it and put that particular restriction on ourselves. Absolutely no fundraising whatsoever. Because if we can successfully launch this project without needing to
raising
money, then it's viable from a regulatory standpoint.
For real phenomena.
And then you actually have a real shot at creating a genuine phenomenon that can truly resonate with people. One that won't get shut down over early stage missteps.
Here's what we did. We built the protocol, and at launch, we put it fully in the public domain. It's like in...
Makes sense.
We made the decision to make it open source. We launched just a month ago. It's no longer under our control. It's already being controlled by the community at this point. And we actually have a very small voice there in the decision-making process. It's a truly decentralized network that will evolve strictly through collective participation.
Independent of us, only with everyone involved.
And we think that particular restriction, even though it obviously creates some additional,
Pretty serious hurdles.
but it's the only way. The path these kinds of projects can and should launch on.
Sure, think Near Foundation with Ilya Polasukin, or Durov with Tun, and so on. A lot of people might think
Durov with Yeremiev.
Durov with Yeremiev.
But you remember how they initially launched it and successfully raised $1.8 billion in funding.
I do, yeah.
And then
Right, the SEC came in and that was it.
That's exactly what we avoided by doing it this way. So the SEC has no case. If they do show up, it's all so clean that we weren't playing that game because we were playing a different one. The game of building this decentralized protocol, not pumping staking rewards into some foundation or organization. There is no foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And in that sense, the last 2 years were really focused on exactly that. We came to realize this was something truly important that we needed to build. And we also saw that realistically, the odds weren't huge, right? But that chance grows as the level of
Threat.
But over the last year and a half,
Yeah.
more and more people, you're right, it's still a niche of folks who get
But
it.
it's already pretty
But
big.
For us,
Same story with Bitcoin. For years, it was a niche. It wasn't like everyone piled in. Like, we hate central banks and boom, everyone bought Bitcoin. Nope. We're talking tens of thousands by year 2, hundreds of thousands by year 3, and about 1 million by year 4. We're saying it grew slow. If this tech follows the same path now, just faster. Why faster? Because A, everyone's seen Bitcoin already.
And second, it's the trend.
Second time around, people won't want to miss what they missed the first time. And another thing, right before our eyes, 5 big companies plus a few Chinese giants are grabbing this market fast. It's scary, and it's only going to get scarier.
Look, before we go further, first off, we still have to talk about how it works. Because honestly, I don't fully get it yet. But listen, I talked to the team before we hit record. We revisited what we discussed last time and what you're doing now. And my colleague had a question, like there's one part that's not clear. So, you two started working on AI several years ago. You even raised money, were already actively in the market, saw what was happening, saw the various products emerging, and so on. And when the super mega trend hits, when that super mega wave comes crashing in, the helicopter money starts flying around again. Why, instead of actually joining the firms that are run by those particular folks, moving huge amounts of money with these wild valuations, and ultimately becoming beneficiaries from that side of things, you instead, from what you're saying, go for this kind of libertarian, or whatever you call it, model? Give it to people, give it to society, and so on. Because from a pure business angle, you have the reputation, you have successful valley exits, people know you can pitch and raise money easily, you already did a very large seed round, and so on. Basically, the path could have been, bam, take off together. And by now, you'd have a multi-billion valuation. Why not go for that?
in the last 4 months, we had 2 separate offers from top AI labs
From the very top AI labs.
to pay us more than $100 million to buy us. You can look at this particular decision from 2 different angles or perspectives. If you actually go back and listen to our earlier interviews with you, the people who know us know that for us, philosophy is thinking about the world, about that future world of abundance. For us, that's
building tools, social tools, and social innovation that can truly move humanity forward to a completely different and better place. That kind of abundance. You can call it AI abundance. Back then, talking about AI abundance sounded a little crazy. But even then, we were expecting it overall. And that's what we care way more about creating in our lives. You know how Elon Musk wants to get people to another planet? That's what matters more to him. Like, forget what PayPal did and all the rest. That's his goal. Same for us. Money is essentially a resource to help us reach that goal. And even when we're talking about money and these opportunities, we're basically turning down, I don't know, something like a couple $100 million when these top companies come forward with their acquisition offers. Or passing on starting our own something or other. Yeah, because we already built a product that used AI to speed up apps.
Yeah.
And now everyone is going to need that. Give it a year or two, and it will be a must-have. Maybe then they'll come to us to buy product science, but we'll see. And we could have made like a couple of $1 billion, for sure.
Not bad.
Not bad. Really not bad. And it wouldn't have changed squat about where the world is headed.
But you'd have the resources, right?
You know, temporarily. Honestly, I look at all this and think, someone built Cursor, right? And the 5 leading labs will soon ship their own version that cuts them off from that little channel, and that's that. Game over. Like Sora, replacing TikTok, YouTube, and everything else. Bit by bit, if these AIs can do basically everything, why wouldn't they build every product and replace the competition? They will, and they already are. And OpenAI just dropped a new product with agents. How many startups were out there building agents? Now, OpenAI is taking their market too. OpenAI is shipping an agent builder. Now, OpenAI is doing video generation. Now, OpenAI is doing what's the pattern? You can keep chasing, maybe even make a couple billion, but in the end, you lose it all and you're not part of anything. Or you step back and see what's actually changing in the world. And if we successfully pull it off and build exactly what we want to achieve, a genuine, real alternative that becomes a significant and substantial part of the AI market, but fully decentralized and open source alternative, then as founders, we took 10% of the coins for ourselves. And if this race actually hits $1 trillion, if it's genuinely like Bitcoin Plus, really substantially bigger than Bitcoin, we'll earn way more money on that than in the Silicon Valley race of raising a few $100 million with billion-dollar targets. We could make hundreds of billions, if we place the right bet.
All right, now look, I've been tracking and monitoring the crypto market pretty closely for quite a lot of years now. And like these so-called Bitcoin killers, there've been plenty of them. Teams showed up with some kind of utility, said they had superior mining models, and it all ended up the same way. So basically, Bitcoin, like you said at the start, is digital gold. It's way more mobile than gold. You can transact with it. It's more liquid, and so on. And it's under government oversight now, right? At least for now. And its use case is pretty clear. Now, with your specific model, first, honestly, my knee-jerk reaction is skepticism. The moment a coin shows up in the picture, I immediately get skeptical. So let's break this down in plain, simple terms. What exactly is the protocol model that we're discussing? Why should people be motivated by it and find it compelling? And why do you think it has even a small but real chance to actually become something huge and significant? I need a clear through line here.
Take Bitcoin. We see something like 26 gigawatts of electricity burned on a math problem that has nothing to do with the specific function you mean, transactions.
Yeah.
The transaction itself takes micro.
Right. The main cost is mining. It's all burned on mining.
It's mining, which is basically just burning electricity.
Brute forcing code?
Brute forced. Right. That's Bitcoin today. And that's enough for it because it provides the transaction function. And all that power burn is needed for network security, so no one can get majority control and cheat or manipulate the shared ledger.
Okay, yeah.
What we're doing essentially says no to that approach. 99+%, like 99% of the compute should actually go to useful work, and only about 1% on network security, on keeping the network safe. And that's the big core difference. Our protocol is built that way. And the useful work is running existing LLM models and training new ones.
So how does this work? I don't totally get how it works technically. Break it down super simple. Say I went and bought a few rigs.
You've got a GPU.
Yeah.
Yeah, that GPU can actually run AI workloads too.
Yeah.
Which is great. And like with Bitcoin, you install certain software. Yeah. And you hook it up to the network. At that point, your machine starts talking to hundreds of other machines on the network. And it starts together they begin to form a kind of collective system. And
Orchestration. Orchestration.
like a single server that can run those computations.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
An external API.
just like in Bitcoin, there's what's called proof of work, right? You earn a coin by proving that you can perform certain computational operations successfully. Same here. Your server essentially proves it can execute operations successfully. And the more ops it can handle efficiently, the more it earns
The
in
bigger the
return.
daily slice of coins it takes.
Right. So for you, it really feels just like Bitcoin mining. You simply plug it in and then get started right away. Your machine just works.
The only question is where that compute power is pointed.
Meanwhile, on the other side, what's happening is developers.
Developers of any apps, bots, the company Flow.
I could basically plug into your network.
Push all my AI compute resources to it, and it gets sent over into that distributed network.
Yeah.
The distributed network does the compute and gives you the result. Like in ChatGPT, when you type,
You send
a
a prompt,
question goes out,
you get a reply.
an answer comes back. Same deal. You get that answer thanks to the distributed network. Each little query gets routed to whoever will handle it best, and then the answer gets sent back to you. And all of this happens in a secure way so that everything is protected.
You can be sure the answer you got isn't fake or tampered with, but meaning on our side, inside the protocol, there are algorithms encoded that verify the model you're using and the task it was asked to do. The work the developer requested hasn't been altered with respect to the model's quantization level, if that might not be totally clear. And the term itself can be simplified a bit. That's called quantization. It might be 16-bit, 8-bit, 4-bit, and our system detects which level is being used and tracks it for consistency.
If you try
to trick the developer and slip in a different level of simplification, our system will catch it, and you won't get paid.
in that sense, this product, it's not a competitor to Bitcoin. We're not creating new gold.
We're not trying to mint new gold.
So, and actually,
Take Filecoin, for example.
yeah. And what happened is, over these 15 years, it wasn't just Bitcoin. There were different projects, especially ones that built real
Render
utility.
or Filecoin.
Yeah, it doesn't have a market cap in the billions of dollars.
Trillions.
Right, trillions of dollars, whereas this one's market cap is in the billions. As of now, Filecoin already stores 10 million terabytes, about 10 exabytes of data in total. As infrastructure, it's a very successful project. 10 million terabytes is more than YouTube, meaning you could fit all of YouTube's videos on that network.
That's right.
A distributed network.
Yeah, a distributed
that's
network.
Honestly, kind of embarrassing, but I don't know that
It's
project.
a bad product. That's the thing.
Never heard of it.
And then
Protocol Labs made it.
there's also the Render project that we should consider. I think it's currently valued at around $5 to $6 billion now. They also distributed servers across multiple locations to render animation more efficiently. People actually use it. Right now, it's the cheapest way to render animation. Use those networks. But those were all really niche markets at the time. Things like file storage solutions and image rendering capabilities. AI is an order of magnitude bigger.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not competing to become the new gold. We're competing on whether we can be a bigger share of the AI market. And unlike the rest of that whole financial crypto stuff that's out there, right? The smart contract market today is currently valued at around $2 billion. That's the cap right there. I mean, that particular market is actually quite small. The AI compute market is already $40 billion today. And in 10 years, AI compute could potentially be around $2 trillion, which is an enormous figure. So,
And when we say market here, we mean how much gets paid per year. We're
Got
talking
it.
about a market
Yeah,
cap
I get
in
it.
the tens of trillions of
You
dollars.
apply a multiple. Got
and
it.
in that particular sense, really, when you think about it, there's always skepticism because you can't compare yourself to the biggest. You compare yourself to Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is unique. But if you compare yourself to other existing infrastructure crypto projects, yeah, they're not worth $1 trillion.
Did they take 10% from the centralized market? Yeah, they did. Bitcoin took 10% of the centralized gold market.
For now.
See, and you even say for now. Can we, in theory, imagine a universe?
A decentralized network.
In a multiverse. In a world where a decentralized GPU network takes 10% of the future compute market, which we just pegged at tens of trillions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And if it actually can, then we go from today's relatively small valuation to it growing exponentially to trillions of dollars over the course of the next 5 to 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Everything has a
Chance.
chance.
Yeah. And honestly, when you really think about it, there's a big chance the big AI labs will be practically impossible to compete with going forward.
If the US government clamps down on everything,
But
lets no one
If
do
you
anything.
truly believe in that outcome, you should short the rest of the market because other companies simply won't survive in that new world order. But that's exactly why, and what's going to grow is
Demand
demand
for
an alternative.
Mm-hmm.
Because we need alternatives.
This won't be used or utilized by Google, Meta, or OpenAI in any way.
Right, got it. It's for folks who can't spin up 1 million of their own GPUs.
But companies like Canva, Flow, multi-billion-dollar companies will use it. They run a ton of compute. They need it too.
And for them, there's a big risk.
Big risk that those 5 companies take their market for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
People won't do it themselves. They'll get presentations made for them and even their health metrics reports done for them.
In that sense, like with Bitcoin, every single financial crisis was a boost. Yeah, it grows the crowd of people looking for an alternative solution. And every headline about how
Self-driving cars finally took over, taxi drivers are gone. That's one more headline. Then another. Year after year.
And that still isn't happening.
You think it won't happen?
No, it will. It just should
This
have
will
happened
happen
10
so
years
quickly.
ago.
10, 20, whatever.
But look at the chart. Waymo is the self-driving service
I've
out of
seen
San
it.
Francisco. They've already successfully grabbed 20% of the rides market. And that growth curve is basically exponential at this point. With technology like this, it really takes considerable time to develop. It takes a long time to properly hitch the horses.
Takes
right?
forever to hitch them up,
Therefore, actually, when they tell us you're already too late, no, we don't believe it. Because this AI adaptation will take several years. It will take 5 to 10 years. But once it actually hits and takes effect, the market impact is absolutely massive and significant.
You'll see it clearly, sector by sector, as we go through.
Look, I have a question for you here. I get the model completely. How many GPUs do you actually have available right now?
We have 450 GPUs right now.
Mm-hmm.
These are high-end GPUs, not home GPUs, server grade.
Got it.
Hoppers and Blackwells.
Now here's my question for you. Look, thinking like a big established company. Say you go from 400 to 50,000, 100,000 employees, and so on and so forth. So if I'm a giant company, I can just freely abuse and take advantage of your system. I could quite easily dump all of my available compute resources directly onto your capacity and crash it really fast without much effort. Boom! The story would be over just like that in an instant. So from a control standpoint, even though you only really get to move beyond just having influence once you're already huge and well established in the market. Up until that point, there's a tremendous amount of risk and numerous ways that you can be abused.
How many computers did banks have?
1, probably.
At banks in 2013, 2015.
I don't know.
Could banks back in 2013 have pulled off a 51% attack on Bitcoin? They certainly could have. That was already Bitcoin's 4th year. So why didn't they?
What do we observe?
I get it.
The thought to plug in more GPUs hits you at the exact same time that other people are also getting the same idea and reaching the same conclusion. And that's what protected Bitcoin, even though early on, Bitcoin had only about 1,500 GPUs. It kept Bitcoin from ever getting close to a point where someone controlled the network.
That possibility did exist,
Because
yeah.
as soon as someone sees a headline like, dang, this exists, or here's a podcast about it, you think, oh, I should plug in now. At that same moment, 10 more people are thinking the same thing.
If you saw that headline Everyone saw that headline.
Right. And spreading the knowledge is really the key here. That's what matters most in this particular situation we're facing. Because once knowledge spreads, every story about someone adding GPUs makes someone else want to add more too. And sure, you could add more. You could. But the hardware is very expensive. Even today, it's around $1 million a month.
Seriously?
Yeah. People are spending that on hardware.
One machine costs $1 million?
No. One GPU. One GPU runs like $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, depending on the model. So 400.
Right, 450
so
GPUs.
Renting one in the cloud for the long term, when you're buying in bulk, is approximately $2 an hour. If you multiply that by 24 hours and round it off, that comes out to about $50 a day. That's the cost to rent a single GPU, which means about $1,500 a month per GPU. If there are 400...
you multiplied it out.
And now you get what that means per month. This month passed, we launched a month ago. And in that 1 month...
$1 million
we
already.
Grew to the point...
You could pay it yourselves, basically, right?
We could. I mean, some people say, why not just raise money into ourselves? No. We get investors coming in saying, oh, we want to invest in you. We say, there's nothing to invest in.
Buy.
Mine.
You can't even buy the coins right now. You can mine, go mine. And they go mine. And investors, VCs, are like, okay, for me, that's, I don't know, a $400,000 check over the next 6 months. Okay, like backing a startup. So people mine.
And what we see is that it all happens naturally and simultaneously at once. The more belief there is in the system, the more people want to get in and actively participate.
Ready to participate.
And the more secure the whole system ultimately gets. Our first month went by pretty quickly, and there wasn't a single moment when anyone had over 30% of the power at any point.
And folks keep adding more, like another 100 GPUs or so. We jumped up to 400.
And we think it'll keep going like that in a similar fashion, with no particular moment where someone suddenly just...
Right now, big, well-known miners have already allocated their GPUs, about 300 more, and they'll add them in 2 steps. First 150, then another 150, meaning they get it too. They remember how it went with Bitcoin. You need to make sure no one ever has a majority. I just need to be a sizable part of the network so I can earn more coins.
What people don't quite fully understand or grasp about Bitcoin and its implications, regardless of the fact that it's written in plain text in
Satoshi...
in Satoshi's white paper.
According to Satoshi, the fundamental concept really rests on the underlying assumption that the majority of people are honest. It's a very humanist assumption to make.
Honest majority.
We know folks who built Bitcoin hardware who, as soon as they started getting close to 50%, backed off. They said, we won't do more. And
they waited until the whole market caught up to them.
Because these networks are actually being built by enthusiasts who genuinely want that future to happen.
And more than that, they know it only happens if security is preserved. So,
well, now nobody can get 50% anymore.
That's in Bitcoin.
Back then it was...
No, they just stopped themselves, right? They could have, but they stopped.
The moment you do it, you lose everything you put in because you instantly destroyed the trust. The trust in it.
Yeah, the trust.
Exactly.
Right. And that's not... It's one of those things where you look at it and go, no, humanity isn't really like that. We're all different.
And there are millions of idle GPUs
everywhere,
spread all over the world. 10,000 here, 50,000 there. One government has 100,000, another has some here and there. They're scattered everywhere now. But most of them aren't even at half capacity.
Meanwhile, the current network miners all have significantly more resources at their disposal than before. They still play by the same rule that they've always followed. They put in a little bit initially, then they see others add to it, so they add more themselves, and then even more after that. So we're expecting pretty organic and natural growth from this approach.
Like, in theory, it's essentially a monthly doubling, and we all know exactly how that exponential curve hits. So if things keep going like they are now, month 1 wasn't a 2x, it was actually a 4x. We'd already told a bunch of people exactly how it works, and once we launched, they were able to plug in really fast. For month 2, we expect a doubling, maybe more, I don't know. And then I expect that doubling for the next 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 months. We'll hit 100,000 GPUs probably in under a year.
Bold claim, but interesting. If this whole thing actually works out as planned, it's going to be a truly phenomenal case to work on. If it doesn't pan out in the end, at least you gave it a genuine, real shot at making it work.
Yeah, at the very least, we tried.
We've actually got people who were in from the very beginning, right from the initial launch itself, which is remarkable. And at the beginning, since there were fewer GPUs, how does Bitcoin mining work? The more GPUs, the thinner the pennies get split.
Got it.
Like back in 2010, the Bitcoin network had approximately 1,500 GPUs running. Each one of those GPUs earned around 1,000 Bitcoin over the course of a year. So right now...
1,000 Bitcoin a year. Just picture that number today.
Back then, that money was,
life-changing.
And in that sense, we've got...
7 figures.
Yeah.
Easy.
Just a month ago, the actual cost to mine a single coin was only 20 cents, which seems almost unbelievable when you think about it now. Now, 2 cents. Now 10 cents. And the folks who joined a month ago are like, well, yeah, that change is definitely noticeable.
In a month.
And in that particular sense, it's quite apparent. And we believe that the more people will see this as a real alternative. And at first, it'll be a small crowd. At first, it'll be the believers.
Right now, it's a small crowd. And that relatively small crowd is mostly composed of people who genuinely believe in it or actively want it to happen. And they go ahead and rent GPUs to run a node and establish a connection to the network. The future won't look like this. The future is 10,000 pro data centers, specialized chips, with access locked in years ahead, and billions spent buying them. That's what the future looks like. Exactly like it played out in Bitcoin.
First, there were those 1,500 GPUs. You could plug in a home PC and earn 1,000 Bitcoin. And 3 years later, it was all running on specialized chips that you can't just buy off the shelf, that require certain specific configurations and setups.
That's basically how Bitcoin runs. Big companies aren't even mining for themselves anymore. They pre-sell it.
Makes sense, yeah.
To people betting the coin will go up.
Yeah.
And for themselves, they take a margin of something like 5%. And the rest is already pre-sold. And think about big funds like US pension funds moving into Bitcoin now. For big investors, for them, the easiest way to put in, $500 million isn't to just buy, because first, try buying $500 million off the market. The smarter move is go to a miner and buy everything they'll produce over the next few months. That's a totally different market altogether. It's not about me running a mining box at home, but rather it's about anyone who's willing to pay up front for that mining capacity while the big companies handle all the actual work and operations. It's like prepaying to dig up gold. Prepaying.
Got it. I've got a question that just kind of pops up. In the last episode, we talked about what you do. Back then, you told us about your fund, about investing in people, and so on, and so on. So as I get it, you've been laser focused on this lately. So what's up with the other companies? I checked out the site, and it looks like the number of people you've invested in hasn't really gone up much, right? So yeah, give us a quick snapshot update after a year and a half on all the other projects. Plus, as I recall, you also have marketing company, kind of like an agency, plus a company that's doing like biotech work, right? So what's actually happening across all of that?
Look, we've got the company that represents our future. Lieberman's Co. So the idea of investing in the future began with the fact that we did this with ourselves. We built this holding company structure. It actually has a bunch of different projects under it, and some of them were very public. People talked quite a lot about our fund that invested directly in people. Some were very private and under the radar. like our company that optimizes big corp
We spoke at
enterprise
conferences, like
applications.
professional ones.
That was the focus. All our marketing aimed at selling to big corporations.
Got it. Yeah. Okay.
We just didn't talk about it much. So regarding the update, when we last met and discussed it, that holding company had a $200 million valuation at that time. Then we went ahead and did another funding round at $400 million. We brought in more outside investment capital from external sources. Very big names in the market. I'm not entirely sure the audience knows them.
They're
or
actually
is familiar with
listed
them.
and available on your site right now.
Right. And we kept investing in people, continuing to build our team and expand our human resources. It's a fund. And like any other fund, it has a natural cycle of
You raise the money, you allocate the money, and then you wait 8 years for exits.
right. The founders that we've backed have done really well.
The people we
overall.
invested in.
Right. And the main stage that we're looking at now is to get it all to exits like any fund would. Reach the point where we can actually realize the stake in those founders that we bought and then sell it for significantly more money.
So basically, the idea is to resell stakes in people.
Well, again, as investors, yeah, it's an investment
No,
project.
I get it. So you're not really looking to take dividends from these founders, but rather to resell them later on to other funds?
To show the power.
To demonstrate that the model actually works properly.
Because we do get dividends, yeah. But dividends, as you know, are always a tiny slice of a
Makes
company's
sense, yeah.
value.
In that sense, we're really patiently waiting for the market to fully mature and develop. And just last week, someone actually reached out to us again. I think it was Peter Diamandis' team that made contact.
Not sure if you know him. He's the founder of Singularity. He's got one of the stronger and more popular podcasts out there now.
Very niche, not particularly huge.
Yeah.
or
I've
expensive.
seen it.
And they're actually launching a brand new project where they want to use this particular model and really partner closely with us around it. The idea that this particular kind of investment
The idea
approach
is very much
better
alive.
is really gaining
We
significant
keep
traction.
actively pushing it forward. Earlier this year, we spoke at Yale to students. We keep engaging with people,
Right.
staying on
but
top
a
of
fund
it.
has its own cycle that it goes through. Around 7 to 8 years.
I get it, like any other fund. Got it. So you're not planning to invest in another 100 people?
We would, as soon as we show results.
You need a track record, right?
Need a track record.
That's how it works with funds. You do the first, then the second.
I get it. That's the classic model. Got it. So you essentially need to demonstrate traction and show real exits to basically be able to open up a new fund and successfully raise capital into it.
We're playing the long game here. So we stay patient, wait it out, and keep moving this thing along. In the AI world, that's going to matter even more.
And our biotech company is even more long-term. We build on discoveries our parents made
Yeah.
about how computation works inside cells, inside neurons. And we're laying all of the essential tech groundwork to build the future quantum computers based on that fundamental principle.
Hold up. First comes the prep to run experiments. We spend a long time thinking through which ones, because they'll be expensive, long-term experiments.
As for quantum computers, I think almost no one doubts they'll work. Yeah, it's pretty obvious they're the future of computing. I mean, they're clearly going to be revolutionary. But everyone also gets that it's beyond, 20 years from now.
You mean ahead? 20 years.
Yeah.
Sorry to jump in here. On quantum computers and the crypto market, Bitcoin and all of that stuff, right? One big risk, as I understand it, is a quantum computer that can actually crack the encryption. Honestly, I haven't gone super deep into it, but my understanding is, even if we do get to quantum computers, it won't be like we just wake up one day and it's suddenly there the next day. So it's going to be step by step by step. And at each step, the tech will change. Encryption levels will get upgraded. By the time the computer actually shows up, the whole encryption model will have changed.
So with Bitcoin,
Actually, no. Plus, Bitcoin isn't some unchanging monolith like everyone thinks. The Bitcoin code has changed.
Exactly.
It just
That's what I
takes
mean.
time.
By then, it'll
Yeah.
have changed 10
Yeah, of
times
course.
over. The model will adapt.
Totally. And you can't go back and rewrite the past just because you decide.
the ledger stays. It's already recorded and everyone will see it. The only thing is that
But the encryption keys will definitely change. So, for example,
someone could get into your account, loosely speaking. That's the quantum threat to
Yeah.
Bitcoin.
That's exactly my point. In theory, someone could brute force the decryption. But as I get it, that changes too. The model fully adapts.
So, how do these distributed networks work? In reality, adaptation isn't instant because there's no single server you just update. Yeah. But once they reach consensus among all the participants that an update is needed, these updates do happen. In Bitcoin, for example, just a year ago, they introduced an additional type of encryption to support joint signatures. That feature wasn't in Bitcoin at the start. So, as soon as there's really clear proof that the update is needed,
Mm-hmm.
in the community,
But the community still has to accept it.
that's how it actually works. You're right. It's mostly a myth that some code will flip and everything changes at once. What really happens is this. You're chatting today, and you hope nobody can read it,
And they will read it.
meaning anyone.
Wait, I said it wrong. You hope they won't read it, but they are reading it.
Today, they can't read it. If you encrypt well, they can't read it.
But even when it's encrypted, they can still save it.
They still record all of it.
All the encrypted
Yeah,
traffic.
totally.
and
I
stash
completely
somewhere.
get it. I have absolutely zero illusions that everything we talk about and all our text conversations will eventually get read by someone someday.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's being recorded today, of course. And on Bitcoin security, it will definitely get updated. There is already quantum resistant encryption. There's just no point in updating it now. No point at all. Because quantum computers are still very far from any practical use.
For Bitcoin, that would also mean upgrading hardware, right? Say. But hang on. Bitcoin is actually an ecosystem where the hardware turns over really fast. Like we were just saying, if in 15 years, performance jumped by approximately 300,000 times, you can try to picture and visualize how much it changed each year and how many years it actually takes before your old rig burns more electricity than the Bitcoin it actually earns is worth. You see what I mean?
Yeah, makes sense.
Then you inevitably get pushed out. So you have to ditch the old gear and put in the new gear. Anyone wondering what to do with old Bitcoin gear? Toss it. And the folks who get how the market works went into it with eyes open. They know how this works.
So when it's time to swap hardware for quantum resistant encryption, it'll change. And it won't be a problem.
Got it. Okay. New topic. Picking up from last time, when we recorded, we talked about the economy's issues and the pension fund model problem. Young people don't see money and aren't motivated to start companies. And that whole story, that entire situation, it's getting even
It's already
worse
getting
now,
worse,
unfortunately.
and AI is making it even worse.
That's exactly where I'm going. It's been a year and a half since then. This thing's only gotten more entrenched. And on top of that, we've got this so-called artificial intelligence threat. So look, I want to try to figure out which way we should actually turn and develop this whole story as we're moving forward with it in the process. There's this idea of a singularity point, where AI gets at least as smart as us, maybe even smarter than humans. Once we hit that critical point, the development starts to accelerate really fast. And we also talked about unemployment rising and just continuing to keep on rising steadily, and so on. Because people don't really have a clear reason or motivation to do stuff, to go out and get a job. In the current setup, unemployment is going to climb even faster. Take that San Francisco startup with the cars. Waymo, right?
10 million people.
Bam, just gone instantly.
Well,
And I was
not
trying,
instantly. over a couple of years.
That's instant in our time, instant in a couple of years. So obviously, if we take a quick spin through the course of history, when major tech revolutions hit and transform industries, the person who was previously at the machine stops being needed or required. Millions of people lost their jobs as automated machines gradually rolled in. But people went on to learn how to repair those machines, or, I don't know, write the software programs to run them, and so on and so forth. In this particular paradigm, when AI eventually does create massive, widespread unemployment, where do all those displaced people even go, in your view?
Let's try to sketch it out. You want to give a different answer? Go for it.
Well,
Am I right that you two sync up somehow? Like, in your heads, you already read the answer he wants to give, and...
I heard his
Got it.
and got what he...
There are 2 points here, and it really depends on how fast AI rolls out. No one knows the answer. So we can lay out 2 scenarios. And in both, what we're talking about plays a big role.
A key role in whether it ends up really bad for everyone or actually great.
So one is that AI doesn't develop that fast. Not instantly. And
Like,
AI.
decades.
Yeah, call it 20 years. And it dramatically boosts the productivity of anyone who can afford to use it. And in that world, whether you have access to it, whether you can afford it, will determine basically whether you have a job or you're out on the street.
Right, you're on the street or what?
And in that world, there's, again, a really big risk that we face because this tool will sit in very few hands and it'll be given proportionally
To your social rating,
your social
right?
rating or whatever. And in that setup, a programmer with access to AI and a programmer without it, and you two are just already
In 2 different
leagues. You're just not in the same
Basically,
game.
how do you justify that? It's easy. Imagine it's so powerful that someone with it can do anything in a day. Then you give people access to it by license. Do you even have the right to access it? Are you socially safe enough for society to let you use a thing that can code a new operating system in a day or not? Honestly, it helps to picture that future. And yeah, not the crazy dystopian future where a superintelligence enslaves everyone, but rather just a more realistic future where there's AI. A superintelligence that can do things, but maybe still doesn't have a will of its own. Right, it just does what you tell it.
Yeah.
You type the command, do this, and it does. It's like a magic wand that can do anything. Yeah, it's got all of human knowledge at its disposal and the ability to reason through things. And give it robot hands so it can act in the real world. Then it can physically do pretty much anything at any level of accuracy, like one that can do eye surgery. Sure, that one costs $1 million, but the one that can pour me a glass of water will run like $10.
Hey, maybe even less.
Could be 5.
Because the number of companies jumping in right now is insanely high.
We've got friends who, for years, wait, how long without exaggerating? 15 years building robots. They were just way early.
I've got a buddy too. Look up Artem Sokolov, the guy building a humanoid.
Tema Sokolov built one in 7 months.
They made actual working prototypes.
Yeah, a working prototype in 7 months. That's the current speed we're at.
Yeah.
So our friends were building robots ages ago. It was too early, so they went through a few waves of attempts. Lost again and again. Took jobs elsewhere, then came back. Now he's got his own database with 500 robot making companies.
Competition is going to be wild.
Right. It'll be wild if...
It will be insane if the brains of these systems are equally accessible.
Yeah, but what if only a few companies own the brain?
Picture this. Everyone makes phones, but only Apple gets access to the internet. Who will win this market? Apple. Now, if the internet is open to everyone, then everyone can sell.
That's the difference between those two futures. They look similar on the surface. You get this AI that can do everything. In one world, it's equally available to everyone. And then the unemployment,
we need
disruptions.
We need to spell out that world. If a robot costs $5,000, then today there are 1 billion people, at least 1 billion, who can afford one.
They can, yeah.
Who could literally go out and buy one right now.
So let's say I come home and I don't waste any time cooking. I just press, I say, make me an
Forget
omelet.
Cooking. It goes to the factory and works for you.
This is your robot.
Your robot goes out and manages the intersection for you. It goes, walk the dog for you. It does things for you. Imagine it works 24 hours. Okay, fine. Not 24. 20 working, 4 charging. Those 4 hours, it charges and gets some maintenance. Maybe another robot fixes it during that time. Another robot fixes it then. It works 20 hours. Split that time into rough sectors. A third each, let's say roughly 7 hours at your place doing home stuff, 7 hours doing your actual job for you. And the other 7 hours on public purposes and activities. Like a cooperative thing, building roads together, putting up factories, laying down power lines.
What you're saying kind of like about unemployment.
No, it changes what unemployment even means.
You get this lack of need to work.
You don't need to work because your robot works for you.
But that version only happens if the brains
If
aren't
everyone has
controlled.
equal access to...
If the brains are
Yeah,
controlled,
yeah.
it doesn't look like
If
that.
this robot
This robot from Google,
does everything
it does it
at your
for you
place.
only if you...
It costs $1 million, roughly.
No, it doesn't cost
won't
$1
even
million.
sell it to
They
you.
only rent it to you. And they squeeze you for as much as you're willing to pay.
See, that's the interesting part. There are a few models for self-driving cars right now. Take Waymo. You can't buy anything there at all.
Nothing to own.
You're locked into renting, and the path is clear. They'll kill Uber, Lyft, and the rest.
And they can set any price.
Yeah, meaning they'll charge whatever they're allowed to. I mean,
Sorry, hold that thought. But Uber's whole idea was they'd turn profitable once self-driving showed up. They just won't exist. They'll get washed away.
they won't because they don't have self-driving cars.
They just couldn't build them, right? So they'll get swept away.
They couldn't deploy. Why? Because Google sued them. Because supposedly they had files from Google? Even though the only proven file was basically a weekly meeting deck, which honestly had nothing technical in it. But Google sued and forced them to stop.
And in the end, they own, Waymo.
Yeah, they own it themselves.
So there's the Waymo model, and there is like an alternative from Elon Musk. He's telling what seems to be the same story that Danya is telling, where
Every
single
household
car
has
on the
its own
road
car.
is run and controlled by the network.
robo-taxis.
Yeah, and it makes money for you.
Right.
The only thing he skips is that you don't actually own that AI. Even when you buy your next car, you can't move that AI to the new one. So once your car ages out, that's it. They won't sell cars, they'll just lease them and set their own rate.
And on that note, he's already saying robotaxis will be a separate thing.
And he's got a $2 trillion project to fly to Mars. So he'll be just fine. I'm sure of it.
For humanity, I take all the ride-hailing cash from humanity to build rockets and go to Mars.
Meaning,
All justified.
if we don't have...
Even
The ends justify the means, yeah?
even morally justified.
Right, and if you don't have an alternative...
Now he's in power too, so he's got all the levers to do
All
it.
the levers are there.
So unless there's an alternative where the system's brain is open source code available to everyone, computed by a decentralized network of nodes, then that's essentially the future we're heading toward. Then unemployment basically carries the same meaning and implications it has today.
Right.
But if everyone has
in a
it,
future where everyone has a robot that can do any job, that's a future where even if for some reason we don't get paid, then 10 of us get together and build everything we need ourselves because our robots will do it for us. They know how to be doctors, how to be teachers, how to build a house, how to cook.
the fabric of the economy is different.
I get it. But like with any major shift or transformation in society and the economy, it always starts rough. At first, it's that scenario where almost no one has access, and then it slowly widens out.
Maybe, maybe not.
Well, look, let's assume the usual playbook. At first, it's inaccessible, inequality blows up, unemployment rises, and so on. What do you think happens then to people in the economy? What do they actually do?
I think here's what happens. We'll see different versions in different countries.
Mm-hmm.
And in the United States, it'll be heavily regulated. And the income from those companies
It'll get split
gets
into benefits.
redistributed as some kind of benefits. But they'll only take care of U.S. citizens.
the United States.
and at the same time extract resources
from the rest of the
world.
world. Want our AI? Pay up. Inside the US, it's basically socialism.
And in reality, in that sense. So when we fly around the world and meet with AI ministers from different countries, they all get it. They all see it's a sovereignty issue. If they don't have this resource, then what happens in 10 years?
That really hits defense capabilities hard too.
It hits everything.
If you have advanced robots on your side and the other side doesn't have them, case closed.
Right. And
drones, robots, it's all of it. AI defines presence, sovereignty.
if no alternative emerges, some countries will, well, distribute that value in some way. And in general, even today in America, unemployment benefits are pretty high.
Yeah.
They put everyone on COVID relief.
They paid over 10 grand, I
Yeah,
think,
yeah, yeah.
right? That's wild.
They paid crazy money.
People didn't make that much. I told you last time, my friends in New York run a big catering company. They do all the major events, thousands of people. After COVID, folks just said, nah, I don't want to work anymore. My benefits are more than I made with you. And they had a huge labor shortage after that.
And the after effects are still present there. So there will be countries where it won't be as grim. Some countries have pension funds investing in OpenAI, XAI.
We know those countries.
Yeah, even places like Saudi Arabia or the Emirates invest heavily. They get that oil runs out, but this sticks around. And they hope through that investment to get money back into the fund and distribute it to their citizens. And there will be countries with significant
Well, you go to Africa and
upheaval.
people are still using like rakes and basic tools to get their food and harvest crops. And one car for 10 villages.
And it could end up looking just like it looked in past eras, those kinds of upheavals. And there will be plenty, but people will struggle to adapt. People have never lived with this kind of speed of change. They've never faced it. So it'll be hard for them too.
I mean, imagine like I can easily sketch the whole chain of how this could go with regulations, with restrictions, and so on. That 30 years from now, we could manufacture a robot for every person on Earth.
Mm-hmm. That's hard to picture. It's not clear how that...
Look, how long has it been since the iPhone came out?
No, that's not it. I mean, it's hard to picture what the world looks like then, that we can produce them. Sure, that's easy to imagine.
But what that world looks like is really hard to imagine. And the picture we're sketching is one where we make the decision to bet on decentralization and open source technologies. That's a totally different world. A world where the main problem for humanity is the meaning of life.
Choice, what to do.
Like what? What do I want my robot to do for me today?
A really tough philosophical question to consider. Because if we once again go back and look, we can dig pretty deep into the annals of history. Obviously, that exact same tech progress probably wasn't there at that time, at least as far as we currently know. There wasn't really a shift like that exactly. But if you just look at how people's minds actually work, yeah? Including the people who are in power, states as such and those kinds of entities, they always push for the other outcome, right? For power in one set of hands, for total domination, and so on and so on. So your model, where everything is evenly shared, open source, and people ponder the meaning of life. Honestly, it's really hard for me to believe or picture right now, because it goes against how the world typically works.
Sasha, look, here's the thing. The thing is, they're all outsiders here in that particular sense, you know? I mean, we're really talking about the United States and maybe China as well.
Yeah.
All of
them.
them.
And the rest have no choice.
And the rest have no choice. I mean,
that changes the rules of the game.
It totally changes the rules. They'll all back us to make it happen. They'll support it with everything they've got to make it happen.
I'm not just talking about you. I mean the idea in general.
The idea of
Besides you, there could be 100 others trying to build it. I'm just saying that that's exactly what changes the course of history.
Absolutely.
Let's call it that.
And there are already examples in the late 1990s. And everything servers ran a bunch of proprietary operating systems.
From Microsoft to Sun Microsystems to Oracle.
You mean before personal computers were actually in every single home?
Not exactly. When a PC was in pretty much every home by 2001, by 2001, everyone's got one already. And Bitcoin is kind of about to show up. Why? Because Satoshi figured there were enough personal computers out there that they, in total, outnumbered corporate machines.
It was all still under corporate control, even in 2001. Linux was still under 1%
of the server market.
Right.
And today,
75%.
75%.
So, yeah, we've already seen this before.
It's not just like Linux. People don't even know what Linux is. Everything...
Android phones.
What?
All Android phones.
Every Android phone runs Linux. But that wasn't even my point. All of the protocols that the internet runs on, all the protocols that the web runs on in general, the languages, the servers, web servers, mail servers, all of it, open source. It won so hard because back then, it started with a tiny group. In 1991, Linus Torvalds had this idea that we needed an alternative to closed operating systems. He pulled together a bunch of enthusiasts to build Linux, which is hard to picture now. That back then, it was basically the same thing. 5 American corporations controlled pretty much all the world's servers. And home PCs, too. Everything ran on their stuff. And now 90% of all phones run open source Linux. 75% of the servers we use run open source Linux. The whole internet is basically open source. Someone might say, so what? Corporations support all this now, so...
Nah, there are tons of those companies, and they're spread across different countries. Got it, yeah.
But there was a second shift. Like, why the cloud? Why are we talking about cloud GPU now? To support AI. So why didn't cloud computing end up decentralized too? Because there wasn't a Bitcoin-style framework yet. The cloud, Amazon, Google, GCP, Microsoft Azure, that initially kicked off around 2008. That's when the groundwork got laid.
So open source had the die-hard enthusiasts, but it didn't have a model
as in how it's implemented.
You make money,
that
I get it, yeah.
to actually fund that infrastructure.
It pays for physical hardware. And Bitcoin popped up in parallel with the cloud.
Mm-hmm.
And over the cloud era, while the cloud was growing, Bitcoin built an even bigger infrastructure than the cloud. Just for some
little coin.
Weird coin that nobody got before. And now it's like 10% of gold.
Wait, hold up. I have a question here. Technically speaking, why can't we just slap some AI capabilities on Bitcoin's existing compute infrastructure?
It will. It'll just shift over slowly.
No.
Well, you just got to swap out the hardware.
It's not suited for that kind of
so
compute.
The current hardware doesn't work for that?
But what's hardware, really? It's the chip. The building has been built.
Ah, I get it, of course.
You can reuse that.
The power plants are built. The power plants are already up.
I get that it's a massive infrastructure.
It's a huge infrastructure. And the chips only get swapped every couple of years. And with the next refresh over the next few years, you'll see 10, 20, maybe 30% of Bitcoin's capacity in data centers running not Bitcoin rigs, but AI rigs.
Those are the first changes we, for example, made. Like the first thing we did in the protocol is that Bitcoin's computation is a so-called hash function.
Yeah.
Whether our listeners get it or not, it's a very specific type of function. It's not like AI compute. And AI compute is also super standardized. They're all very similar to each other.
It's basically matrix multiplications. It's a specific kind of math.
Right. So if you build the protocol around it, since the hardware that does those computations can win, then the same kind of innovation will happen there. It's just a different kind of compute, slightly different.
Even now, folks who used to build ASICs, those specialized chips, ASICs for Bitcoin.
Yeah, of course.
And among them, dozens of companies have actually spent the last year or even two building completely new transformer ASIC architectures. And some of them, they're only just starting to roll out chips. Next year they ship. They're making bold claims, like, how do you even say bold in Russian?
Like strong statements, yeah.
Claims that are as wild and extraordinary as being somewhere between 10 to 80 times more efficient at handling LLM operations than NVIDIA's top-tier chips currently are. Already 10 to 80x. And that's essentially the same as Bitcoin speed. If we bump this up by around 20% a year,
By 20 times.
20 times a year, that gets you about 300,000x in 15 years.
Yeah, it's coming. But this paradigm shift, switching to that, doesn't it weaken Bitcoin?
Look, we think Bitcoin has its role. It's the gold you can't budge.
Right, it's the base layer.
It's foundational.
Even if you took the entire Bitcoin ledger with all its transaction history and moved it to a completely different location or system somewhere else, to a consensus that doesn't need all that electricity, Bitcoin wouldn't vanish. It's gold at this point. The fact there's a ton of gold on asteroids and we might reach it soon doesn't tank gold prices on Earth. It hasn't knocked down gold prices here at all. Even if there's more gold out there than on the whole planet. It's definitely out there. We can see it in telescopes and know we could get there, but not right now.
Makes sense.
Because right now it's about believing in scarcity. The amount of Bitcoin won't increase, even if you move it to, say, Solana.
What's more likely to happen is that a completely different protocol shows up that doesn't actually try to be gold, but instead tries to be the fuel for future AI. And
maybe it won't be our protocol. Maybe it will. But if you take a look at today's existing alternatives to our protocol, we'd tell them to completely rethink the core architecture and make a strategic pivot to proof of inference instead.
Because Bitcoin was fundamentally built and designed on that particular model, the better your infrastructure gets, the more cash you earn.
And here we actually need the infrastructure.
Yeah, and most other projects in the blockchain space, the best known one is BitTensor.
60% of newly issued BitTensor tokens go to validators and subnet owners. The structure is so convoluted, you get lost in it.
The people who park capital win, not the ones who bring better hardware to the table.
I get it. Whoever stakes, basically.
They don't create that cycle where upgrading hardware makes sense.
Upgrade hardware, add more. Got it. I totally get the difference.
And yeah, in that sense, there are already decentralized
crypto AI projects.
But they're mostly really interesting ideas, like, thought pieces and conceptual explorations. Concept projects that really can't spin up the same flywheel effectively. Right now, we're putting together a group, and this is already going to be our third trip. To this country called Bhutan. Right.
Quick step back to your question.
And there,
about state participation.
It's known. Not many people are actually aware of this fact, but within the cryptocurrency community, it's quite well known because it happens to be the third largest Bitcoin mining operation.
The coins are actually owned by the state. They are state property.
Because they spotted the opportunity and they've got a lot of
electricity, tons and tons of hydropower. They realize that they're completely wedged between China and India, so it's really hard to sell to anyone else, and those neighboring countries buy it on the cheap. Or you can sell that power directly to the Bitcoin community by mining Bitcoin with it. They signed a deal with Bitmain and brought Bitmain gear into Bhutan.
A whole lot of those specialized chips.
They did it basically on a handshake. Some get paid in Bitcoin, and with almost free, huge amounts of electricity, hydropower.
They mined about $3 billion worth of Bitcoin, which is huge for a very small country with a small population.
What does that tell you? Governments already fully understand and get it. Not just Bhutan, but many others too. Around the world, they've already clocked and recognized. Basically, Bitcoin has accomplished its primary and most important job. It successfully educated the entire world on how decentralized blockchains actually work and function.
So we're actively putting a group together there for this purpose. We actually did one back in February on my birthday, which interestingly lines up perfectly with the King's birthday.
We celebrated together.
Great crew. We brought Silicon Valley folks and
entrepreneurs and
crypto entrepreneurs who were actively mining Bitcoin. So they could really see and understand the massive scale of all those hydro plants and what's currently being built out there. The main topic there was really exploring and examining what the next phase looks like when this whole thing transitions and ultimately becomes AI compute infrastructure. And what really has to happen here so that we can all properly align on a single pragmatic standard, one unified protocol, so that these scattered innovators can...
So for our upcoming collaboration project with Bhutan, we'll be gathering together the various makers and developers of next-generation transformer AI chips to explore opportunities, to really hammer out and finalize that protocol. So yeah, governments are already moving in this direction, quietly, without really causing panic. Some of them are definitely panicking, but overall, they're steadily moving forward with implementing this. And it's really shaping up to be a pretty cool, elegant, and quite impressive international collaboration.
These are exactly the countries that don't have many options.
And we'll be surprised that almost the majority, pretty much all countries, don't have any.
190 countries.
190 countries, exactly. And it starts basically now. In the next 2 to 5 years, this shift hits.
Because there's a definite sequence to how this unfolds. At first, you think this particular outcome is far too unlikely to occur. The much more likely and probable scenario is the concentrated one. But once you really picture that future,
it gets scary enough that you go,
that you really
I'll stash at least a little of my resources here. And that's enough. What stops me from parking 1% in this? And that 1% is enough to spark growth, then it's 2, 5, 10, 20%. And the alternative can actually happen.
If you had to sum it up really concisely, in just 3 main beats or key points, where do you think we're ultimately going to land or end up in, say, 5 to 10 years from now, looking ahead into the future? So, what does that particular world look like to you from your perspective?
It'll be a world of major and significant shocks. As in, things will change fast, and a lot of people...
Tens of millions
could get hit hard.
Will fall out of the labor market.
Because they won't be able to...
adapt in time.
Retool. And at the same time, it's really a wild and unique chance to significantly boost overall prosperity across the board. Not just for a tiny elite, but for all of us. When things that today only the richest people have access to become much more accessible and available to everyone.
Even people who are already existing outside the system and operating independently from it, who can't break into it at all, who dig in the dirt and have no other option. Even for them, that world suddenly becomes their everyday reality, just like it is for people in developed countries.
You can kind of see it with phones, There was a moment when rich people had special phones. Virtu and all that. Now they've got the same phone as everyone.
Same iPhone.
It's basically the same, not that different from an Android.
The cheapest one.
Yeah, the cheapest Androids people in Indonesia use. Folks who make way less. AI can do the same.
Same thing will happen with an AI robot. Basically, yeah, it can bring the same, except a robot and AI change your earning power. They change your ability
to make things,
to do the work, to make things, build your own house, and so on. And access will be sure, you might have a rich person might have a 100K robot that can do amazing stuff very precisely.
And others will have the same.
And they'll have the same,
just a bit worse.
A 5K one for the whole village. And it'll do it like this.
Same thing, just not as skilled.
But their lives will be
an order of magnitude better.
An order of magnitude better.
So yeah, there are these two things. And we do worry that, the future is already here, but it's just not evenly distributed across society yet, unfortunately. Meaning, what we're describing here will roll out quite unevenly at first. Certain places and regions will experience major shocks and disruptions. And elsewhere, we'll see that growth. In countries that lean into it, Bhutan and so on, even early on, abundance will jump a lot. But at the same time, of course, I mean, when you really think about it, each of us should put at least 5% of our attention toward this question. What if a world is coming where AI can make everything I can make, but better?
Better.
Nice. Lightning round. Short question, short answer. Let's go one by one. If AI gets smarter than people, is that a win or a loss?
A win, obviously.
Awesome. If you could take a peek just 10 minutes into the future, what's the very first thing you'd want to check?
I'd look at just overall how we live. How far did we get? How far did we push it? I don't really think in our current lifetime we'll reach the stars and other galaxies. I'd love to see when humanity actually gets there, and if it does at all.
And whether it does.
So usually when people ask what year in the past I'd jump to, I say,
I want the future.
10,000 years ahead.
Love it. What breakthrough in the last 2 years really changed how you think?
In the last 2 years?
Yeah.
I came across a company called Chemify.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw how AI, LLMs will hit biochemistry, chemistry, and the physics of new materials. Meds, new materials, new batteries. It's coming at insane speed. It's basically already here. It's just a question of what it actually gets applied to in the next 2 years. In the previous 2 years, it literally happened. Leading chemical companies, leading pharma companies have already started ordering their new molecules from AI companies.
Nice. The top skill for a future entrepreneur.
Overall, I think the core fundamental skill today is really the ability to,
Take responsibility.
not that. It's the
Accept
ability
responsibility.
to live with uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
We all honestly hate sitting in uncertainty. There are a few people who do it anyway, even though it sucks. They can sit with it.
It's like pain. Some people handle pain better. Others can handle uncertainty. When you have to decide in conditions of total not knowing.
When the possible outcomes are wildly different from each other, and you still have to move forward regardless.
Which is where responsibility comes in. Someone has to own those calls because you made it in all that uncertainty. If it goes bad, you get hammered. If it goes well, they'll thank you. But if it goes bad, well, yeah.
And like you said, what does it actually take? Exactly. How do you position yourself? How do you think when someone shows up and offers you 100 million today? And you're like, we could build a different future for humanity. It's a tough choice. And I think the skill is living in that uncertainty and moving into scenarios you basically can't predict how they'll play out. That's one of the most important parts of entrepreneurship.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Super interesting. I think we just talked for 2.5 hours again. That earlier conversation really shifted how I see things and my own approach to these topics. This one will too, I'm absolutely sure, because what we discussed today is really pressing, and I think a lot of people genuinely care about it right now. And honestly, I and a lot of people see everything now through the lens of how the world is going to change. That's probably the biggest question any sane person has right now. So thank you so much. I had a blast, as always. Super glad. Friends, if you made it to the end and this was helpful, or you enjoyed it, hit subscribe and drop a like. Most important, share your takeaways, ideas, and insights from today in the comments. Always fun to read and watch. Thanks a lot, folks.
Super.
Nice.